And black men who are trying to avoid an encounter with Boston police by fleeing may have a legitimate reason to do so. This from WBUR.org. This is pretty remarkable. There was a fellow by the name of Jimmy Warren. Actually, let me back up a little bit. Another African-American killed. His family is alleging he was unarmed. The police are alleging he was armed and that they have the gun. You know, we haven't seen the dash cam footage yet, so we really don't know what's going on. We are, just hearing he said, she said. But this was in Charlotte, North Carolina, Keith Lamont Scott. And, it just goes on and on and on. The slave patrol continuing to do the job that they were created to do, I guess, which is to keep people of color down and maintain white privilege in a nation run of, by, and for white people. And that has to change. It's just, that has to change. And so there was this fellow, Jimmy Warren, who back in 2011, in December of 2011, was standing on the street with a friend of his, and the police were looking for three young black men who had just committed some sort of a crime. And it was a break-in Roxbury, Mass, near Boston. And the three were described as one was wearing a red hoodie, one was wearing a black hoodie, and the other one was wearing dark clothing. Now this is, and they were all African-American. This is a description that could apply to anybody with, who's African-American or even remotely looks like they might be African-American. And Jimmy Warren, when the police came, ran. He was apparently not involved in the Roxbury break-in. And when he ran, the police chased him, and when they chased him, when they finally caught him, in a park that he had passed by, they found a .22 pistol, and they said that it was their opinion that he had disposed of it there as he was running. He was convicted of illegally owning or having possession of a gun. And so on the court, this is the Massachusetts Supreme Court, struck this thing down. The Massachusetts Supreme Court said on the first point, that the police couldn't have stopped him in the first place because simply wearing dark clothing is not enough of a description. It's too vague. They said lacking any information, this is from the decision, lacking any information about facial features, hairstyle, skin tone, height, weight, or other physical characteristics, the victim's description contributed nothing to the officer's ability to distinguish the defendant from any other black male wearing dark clothes and a hoodie in Roxbury. And then on the second point, and this is the big one, they said it's not unreasonable for a black man to flee the police, not because he is a criminal, not because he's committed a crime, but because he legitimately fears humiliation or death at the hands of the police. Here's the exact language. This is astonishing. Now, keep in mind, this is just the Massachusetts Supreme Court. But if, this will almost certainly end up at the U.S. Supreme Court, putting another fine point on how important it is that we have a Democrat in the White House and that we get a Democratic Senate and ideally a Democratic House. It's going to be a big lift, but, the importance of showing up for this election, because this decision will be overturned by a Trump, Pence, Scalia kind of court, and it will be sustained by a Ruth Bader Ginsburg type of court. So which do you want? Because that's, in my opinion, that is, 70% of what's on the line right now for the fall. So in any case, on the second point, the court said, we do not eliminate flight as a factor in the reasonable suspicion analysis, whether a black male is the subject of an investigatory stop. In other words, the police were saying the reason we chased him was because he ran. And the court says, okay, that could be a legitimate consideration. However, in such circumstances, flight is not necessarily probative, in other words, demonstrating what's going on, probative of a suspect's state of mind or consciousness of guilt. Rather, The finding that black males in Boston are disproportionately and repeatedly targeted for field interrogation and observation encounters with the police. And by the way, they're basing this on statistics from the Boston Police Department. Rather, the finding that black males in Boston are disproportionately repeatedly targeted for these FIO encounters suggests a reason for flight totally unrelated to consciousness of guilt. Such an individual, when approached by the police, might just as easily be motivated by the desire to avoid the recurring indignity of being racially profiled, or as by the desire to hide criminal activity. Given this reality for black males in the city of Boston, a judge should, in appropriate cases, consider the report's findings in weighing flight as a factor in the reasonable suspicion calculus. Jimmy Warren, they let him off. They let him off. So, you know, it's like slowly. It's, you know, one step forward, 2 steps back, sometimes 3 steps forward, 1 step back. It's, but the other thing that concerns me, frankly, is that, and I'm seeing this in the news media everywhere, is that America is experiencing outrage fatigue. We've given up on being outraged by what's going on. I mean, you know, Newtown, all those kids were killed. The president comes out and begs Congress to do something. And the Republicans in Congress say, no, not going to do a thing. We take too much money from the NRA to put it at risk. Citizens United, we were all horrified by it. But, you know, the Supreme Court's not going to do anything. Congress isn't going to pass it. You know, Congress could actually reverse Citizens United. Article 3, Section 2 of the Constitution. The Supreme Court shall operate, you know, within the boundaries of restrictions established by Congress. But Congress isn't going to do that. Black men being murdered by cops. Donald Trump lies and warmongers. And the media is running a Trump 24/7 reality show, has been for a year and a half. And, you know, and Trump is constantly saying outrageous things. Where's the outrage? It has petered out because it's like every day is a new outrage, right? And whether it was his son with the Skittles yesterday, it's just every day today we discover his foundation has been committing criminal activity. It's mind-boggling. Corporate malfeasance. See, I think that Americans are starting to, you know, there's this concept of the J curve that when expectations and reality diverge significantly, you're ready for revolt. And you know, the question I would ask, and I really don't know, is have we been recalibrating our expectations? Have we been, you know, has the roughly 16 years of Republican rule here in the House and the Senate? I realize there was a 74-day period there where Obama had a filibuster-proof Senate, but outside of that, basically, has this domination caused us to think, oh, you know, Congress can't do anything because Republicans won't do anything because, you know, they're paymasters, the NRA, the Koch brothers, Koch Industries, the Exxon Mobil, you know, they're not going to do anything about fossil fuels. They're not going to do anything about crime. They've got, you know, all the private prison companies buying them off. They're not going to do anything about GMOs, right? Vermont's GMO law gets overturned with the help of a couple of Democrats. Weirdly, I mean, Debbie Stabenow leading the charge on this thing, but it's like but this was a Republican effort. It was absolutely a Republican effort. Corporate malfeasance at the pipeline, the Dakota Access Pipeline, the Wells Fargo, you know, opening accounts that people don't want just to make more money. I've got clips from Elizabeth Warren about this that we will get into as we continue through the day. The fact that you can't discharge student debt with bankruptcy. I find this totally bizarre. This only became the case in 2005. You could always discharge your student debts. You could always just declare bankruptcy before. And this came along with the Bankruptcy Reform Act of 2005. It could be undone in one day by Congress. They're not going to do it. They're taking too much money from the banksters. And there are Democrats in that category as well. You know, this is all terrible stuff. You know, Halliburton made a fortune in Iraq. When Dick Cheney became vice president, Halliburton was on the verge of bankruptcy. He had been the CEO of Halliburton. He had been illegally selling things to Iran in violation of the embargo. His company and he, as the CEO, could be prosecuted. But the new Bush administration chose not to prosecute them. And because they had bought, because Cheney had bought Dresser Industries with this huge asbestos liability, he thought the government was going to pick up the tab. The government didn't. Halliburton was literally on the edge of bankruptcy, or damn close to it, when Cheney became VP. And all of a sudden, they get all these no-bid contracts from the Bush administration. And suddenly, Halliburton and Dick Cheney, all of his stock in it is worth a pile of money. EpiPen and insulin, the price is going through the roofs. The insurance companies pulling out of Obamacare. Over $1 billion that Stephen Hemsley, the CEO of United Healthcare, has taken as a CEO. Every penny of it, made by, most of the pennies of it, made by saying to somebody, no, you can't have that liver transplant. No, you can't have that vaccine. No, you can't have that new drug that cures fill in the blank because it's too expensive. We were lied into a war. And frankly, without the Supreme Court in '76 with the Buckley decision and more recently with the Citizens United decision, I think, we would have done something about this. We would not have a Republican obstruction. The Republican Party might not have been completely captured by corporate America. And a few Democrats, too. In fact, more than just a few. But, by and large, this is a Republican problem in this country. And without the Supreme Court, we might still have an independent Republican Party.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
But here we are. So are Americans feeling outrage fatigue? Are you? We'll be back.